So here are the 3 tips that are great for working with rose piping: 101, 103, and 104. We're going to be working with the 103 today. Here is a couplet that we use in order to be able to interchange our tips very easily. Sometimes I use them, sometimes I don't for this particular so we're going to use it so that I can alternate my 101 to create small roses and my 103, which is my primary tip I'm going to use. Now I'm actually making sure that my tip is aligned with the edges of the bag, so that way I could actually create a different color or multi-colors inside of one bag. I could have my tip be one color and then my bottom, my base, be a different color. So here I'm checking the texture. It is almost there, but not quite. Right now it's like a very soft serve pudding, and we want it just a little bit firmer. We want it to be able to hold those petals. So I'm going to wait a few more minutes before we start filling our piping bag. I did want to show you a couple variations in the nail heads that you can use. This is a really large nail head. I'll list them below. And then of course our typical rose piping nail head, which is the one I'll be using today. I've also cut some wax paper strips that I will use, especially when your soap is a little bit softer. It's always good to use the paper, and you can also use actual freezer paper, which at the bottom I had some extra freezer paper. Okay, so checking our base again, this is the consistency that I like. It's a nice pudding, but it's a lot firmer than what we were looking at a few moments ago. And this is going to be a great consistency to start with. As the chemical reaction or saponification process continues, we will get firmer in the bag. So now is a good time to go ahead and start piping so that we can get really pretty petals. I purchased bags that are larger so that I can use them for multi-functions, whether they're for large piping or for more detailed flower piping. And I just like to cut off the excess so that it's not too large and gets in the way when I'm piping. Another really important tip is to not overfill your bags. Whenever we're piping just dollops and things like that, you can get more generous with the amount of soap. But when you're dealing with a detail such as piping roses, you really want to keep it within the palm of your hand, maybe just a little bit more, so that you have full control, especially when the soap base starts to firm up on you. I also like to keep a wet napkin close by so that I can wipe off my tip periodically so that I can continue to pipe really crisp, clean petals. You want to make sure that the fat end of your 103 or 104 is at the bottom, and at the top is the really narrow end, because the narrow end is going to be the top of your flower. In order to ensure you have good control of the pressure, take the tail end of the bag and place it between your pointer finger and middle finger. This way you have good control of the pressure, especially when your soap base starts to firm up. Secure your wax paper by adding a dollop of your soap base. This will ensure your wax paper doesn't float around the nail head. Add a small mound of soap base to the center of your nail head. This will become your structure to ensure that you've got good support when you start piping your petals. To pipe our center petal, we're going to pipe around the base that we just created in a full circle. This will create the center petal. Now what we're going to do is we're going to wrap a second petal all the way around the flower, the same way we did the first, to create a rosette or our second petal. To create our individual petals, we are going to work in C shapes or rainbows and small sections, overlapping just a little bit over the top of the previous petal until we go all the way around our rosettes that we originally created. Continue around the soap in the same manner until you create a full flower. Keep in mind the position of the top of your tip. If it's close to the rose, it will make a tighter rose. The further away, the wider or more open your rose will be. If you find that your base is becoming a bit more firm inside of your piping bag, you can break up the chemical reaction happening inside of it or saponification process by gently massaging your bag until you create a more fluid base. This will add more longevity to your piping time. Now here, I'm going to show you how I build a flower directly on the nail head without using wax paper. Again, circular motion with a little bit of a downward to create the first petal, second petal, individual petals in a rainbow formation. When working with larger quantities of soap base, be sure to periodically break up that chemical reaction or saponification process happening inside of your individual cups by stirring. This will ensure that you keep a fluid texture long enough for you to pipe all of your colors. Another helpful tip is to split your batch into 2 parts. Working with 16 ounces of oil here, instead I could work with 8 ounces of oil at a time, and this will help to ensure that my soap base does not firm up too much before I can get to it.